no mistaking that Lombardo sound. It may be corny, but a lot of people liked it, and that even includes me. This is Melbourne's own 3DB, and this is your host, Bob Machliss, on Thanks for the Memory. During the week, the sad news came through of the death of Desi Arnaz. If you watched I Love Lucy in the 1950s, and who didn't, then the name Desi Arnaz will instantly bring to mind the image of Lucy's hot-tempered Latin American husband with the mangled English. Long before Lucy, though, Desi was a moderately successful bandleader who cut a number of records and even appeared in a couple of movies. This next song comes from a Universal feature he made in 1946 called Cuban Pete.
About Sloppy Joe, the Latin Lothario, but Havana has a new sensation. He's really a modest guy, although he's the hottest guy in Havana. And here's what he has to say.
They call me Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the rumba beat. When I play the maracas, I go chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom. Yes, sir, I'm Cuban Pete. I'm the craze of my native street. When I start to dance, everything goes chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom. The senoritas, they sing and how they swing with this rumbero is very nice, so full of spice. And when they're dancing, they bring a happy ring, them a carol, singing a song all the day long. So if you like the beat, take a lesson from Cuban Pete, and I'll teach you to chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom. See, senorita, I know that you will like the chicky, boom, chick, 'cause it's the dance of Latin romance. And Cuban Pete doesn't teach you in a hurry like us or Mary. You're now in Havana, and there's always mañana. So, senorita, please, take it easy, do it with ease. And you'll love it when you do the chick, chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom. Chick, 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 chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom.
Cuban Pete by the late Desi Arnaz and his orchestra. That was Desi on the vocals too. I'm not sure who the female singer was. Well, the time has just gone 18 minutes to 8 o'clock, and that means it's time, on Thanks for the Memory, for a Tommy Dorsey track. This one dates back to 1944 and features a great Cy Oliver arrangement of a famous old Dorothy Fields and Jimmy McHugh hit, On the Sunny Side of the Street.
but leave your worries, leave 'em on the doorstep. Life's sweet. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Hop on that pitter-pat. You know that happy tune is my step. Life's story. If you dig that beat on the sunny side of the street, used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade. What a drag, old man, getting stuck in the shade. Get hip, don't be afraid. Moving on over, feel yourself in the clover. Only hit one man who cares. Rich as Rockefeller can't be beat. All that round my feet on the sunny side of the street.
On the sunny side of the street. From Tommy Dorsey with a vocal chorus by the Sentimentalists. Well, coming up shortly on Thanks for the Memory, we have Dean Martin's biggest hit. Years before Dino ever recorded it.
At Melbourne's own 3DB, it's now 14-8.
What's eating you, Fred?
Sharks, eh? Well, it says here in Aussie Post, sharks are far more likely to attack a man than a Sheila.
Yeah? Well, what about this bloke whose marriage proposal was knocked back?
Oh, was he let down?
He was let a long way down, Fred. Aussie Post says he jumped out of a plane.
True. Hey, cop this futuristic, computerised ocean liner.
Futuristic? It's got sails. Hey, but aren't these RAAF helicopter crash shots amazing?
Fantastic. And so is this week's Aussie Post, Bert, out now.
Hi, Philomena here from Philomena's Travel Service. How about joining Melbourne's own 3DB's top racing personality on our 1987 Derby Tour? Not only will you be at the French and UK Derbies, but you'll also attend Royal Ascot, plus the Irish Derby. Sure, it's a great racing feast. Plus, there's lots of sightseeing thrown in too. Call Philomena's Travel on 602-3866 and don't miss out. Call 602-3866.
Arthur Higgins drives you home with news, views, and interviews every afternoon at 5 on Melbourne's own 3DB. Arthur blends the newsmakers with the newsbreakers. Drive with Arthur Higgins every day at 5 on Melbourne's own 3DB.
This is Thanks for the Memory with your host, Bob Machliss.
And bless you, Frank McKay. Back in the early 60s, Dean Martin had what was probably his biggest hit in Everybody Loves Somebody. But as you probably know, that year, that was not a new song that Dino recorded. In fact, it dates back, of course, to the mid-1940s. And here's proof. This version by the Eddie Hayward Trio.
Sometimes everybody falls in love somehow. Something in your kiss just told me my sometime is now. Everybody finds somebody someplace. There's no telling where love may appear. Something in my heart keeps saying my someplace is here. If I had it in my power, I'd arrange for every boy to have your charm. Then every minute, every hour, Everybody loves somebody sometime. Although my dream was overdue, your love made it well worth waiting for someone like you.
Everybody loves somebody sometimes, and that version was by the Eddie Hayward Trio. It's a pleasant enough record. I only picked it up recently. On reflection, though, I do think that Dean Martin's version is the better. Well, from Eddie Hayward, we move on to a very different sound with Skinner Ennis. This track was cut in the late 30s with the Hal Kemp Band, and it's a real 30s type number, Got a Date with an Angel. By the way, at the start, the band sings the beginnings of another song, Climbing Up the Ladder of Love, which actually came from the 1926 production of Earl Carroll's Vanities. I don't know whose idea it was to bring the two songs together, but it does seem to work quite well.
Climbing up the ladder of love to find someone who waits for me.
Got a date with an angel, got to meet her at 7. Got a date with an angel, and I'm on my way to heaven. She's so lovely beside me, and whatever betide me, got an angel to guide me, so I'm on my way to heaven. Soon I'll hear the bells ring out, and the choir will sing out. When the pearly gates swing out, oh, she'll beckon to me. And I've been waiting a lifetime for this evening at 7. Got a date with an angel, and I'm on my way to heaven.
Skinner Ennis must have had one of the most distinctive vocal styles around, and Got a Date with an Angel shows it off to its best advantage. On Melbourne's own 3DB, you're listening to Thanks for the Memory, and the time is 7 minutes to 8 o'clock. Okay, culture lovers, on Thanks for the Memory, it's time for a little injection of Spike Jones with a dignified vocal, supplied by Red Swamphead Ingle. Are you there, Chloe? Chloe, where are you?
Someone's calling.
Hello? You don't say. You don't say. You don't say.
Who was it?
He didn't say.
No reply. Nightshades falling. Hear him sigh. Chloe.
Where are you, you bat?
Empty faces and needy eyes. Empty arms outstretched.
crying through a black night. I gotta go where you are.
Whether it's here or whether it's far, I want to be there wherever you are.
If it's wrong or right, I gotta go where you are.
Chloe, what do you know?
I just got back from a vaudeville showing.
I roam through the dismal swampland, searching for you. Cause if you are lost there, let me be there. 3, 4, 1. And through that smoke and flame, I've got to go where you are.
Thunder, lightning, shower, snow. When I hear the call, I gotta go.
For no place can be too far where you are. Ain't no chain can bind you. And if you live, I'll find you. Love is calling me. I got to go where you are. Ain't no chain can bind you. And if you will, I'm gonna find you, my pretty baby. Love is calling me. Hello? You don't say. You don't say. Who was it? Same guy. I've got to go where you are.
Great old girl, Chloe. Hard to believe that was a serious record in the 1920s, especially when you hear Spike Jones' 1940s versions. You don't say. Here's another old song that has been around for years and years, revived time and time again, and always with success, probably because it's never dated in what it's saying. Frankie and Johnny. This swinging instrumental version comes from 1937, and it's by Bunny Berrigan and his band.
8 o'clock.
3DB Newsfront.
Good evening, I'm Charles Collins. Police say the woman found dead on the side of a road near Kinglake yesterday was the victim of an execution-type murder. The body of 28-year-old Julie Ann Dunn of Preston was found 2 kilometres from Kinglake, and no efforts have been made to conceal the body. Police say she died from a fractured skull inflicted by a blunt instrument, probably a brick. It's believed 1 or 2 people were involved in the murder and that the woman was killed elsewhere and her body dumped by the road. Ms. Dunn apparently had associates involved in the drug scene, and there was a warrant for her to appear in court in relation to drug offences, according to police. She was unemployed, had a 10-year-old son and lived with her parents. The time of death is put between 9 o'clock on Friday night, when she apparently telephoned a friend, and 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. The body of a 10-year-old boy who went missing in the water off Cape Shank has been recovered. The boy got into difficulties and went missing at about 5 o'clock this afternoon, sparking a massive rescue attempt, and though he was sighted once, all attempts to rescue him failed. The Peninsula Rescue Helicopter, the police helicopter, local police and volunteers all joined in the attempt to rescue the boy. Nurses at the Preston and Northcote Community Hospital and the Royal Women's Hospital will go ahead with walkouts tomorrow. Royal Australian Nursing Federation State Secretary Irene Bolger says this is despite the union's intention of recommending a return to work at a nurses' meeting later this week. She says the walkouts are going ahead because there has not been sufficient progress in today's private talks between the nurses, government and private employers. The walkouts will be in casualty at Panch and in the labour wards at the Royal Women's. However, Ms Bolger says the return to work recommendation will be unconditional and will not depend on the outcome of today's talks, although she says there may be some opposition to the return recommendation. A date and venue for the mass meeting has yet to be set, and the strike is now into its 38th day. The Soviet newspaper Pravda claims the United States is preparing to take military action against Syria. Pravda says that a crusade against the Arab country by Britain, West Germany and the US is the first stage of a huge plot. It says military action to destabilise the political situation in Syria is the next stage, currently being prepared. The communist paper also says that Syria's involvement in international terrorism has been invented by Washington and then used to justify sanctions. It says the raid on Syria will be similar to the one on Libya earlier this year, launched by American planes based in Britain. The paper says Israel is encouraging the plot, but warns that Syria will not stand alone and has the support of friends. A Swedish doctor has warned that surgeons could be risking their patients' health by operating with gowns on. He says surgical gowns carry so many germs that they're a threat to patients. Roy Carson reports on the suggestion that operations be carried out by nude doctors and nurses.
Top Swedish surgeon Göran Turval says the gowns surgeons wear are a dangerous source of infection for the patient. He says operating theatre clothing should be cut to the bare essentials, and optimal conditions are achieved when the surgeon and his nurses work completely naked. The Swedish surgeon has put his own medical theory through rigorous tests at the Danderyd Hospital in Stockholm, where he reports the incidence of staphylococcal infection has been drastically reduced when he operates in the nude. Roy Carson, Stockholm.
Golf, and New South Welshman Roger Davis goes from strength to strength. He's just won the New Zealand Open in Auckland by 8 strokes, and in the process he's shattered the course records for both 1-round and the 4-round tournament. On the second day, Davis scored a 62, 2 better than the course record, and his 4-day total of 262, 18 under the card, has smashed the previous best by 4 strokes. Australians also dominated the minor placings in the tournament, with Bob Shearer second and Ian Baker Finch third. And finally, police in Richmond are appealing for the owner of a missing monkey to contact them. The monkey was found in Swan Street near the Sports and Entertainment Centre and is described as small and tame. It's currently cooling its heels in the lock-up at Richmond Police Station. News time, 8:04.
Bert Newton brings you the best breakfast in Melbourne every morning at 6. News, music, traffic, competitions, and Bert, entertaining as only he can. Bert Newton, every morning at 6 on Melbourne's own 3DB.
Melbourne's weather. Showers and the chance of a thunderstorm overnight as the winds shift to a gusty southwesterly. Cool with cloudy periods tomorrow and a few further showers. An overnight low tonight of 13, followed by a top tomorrow of 19 degrees. On the bays, northwesterly winds around 20 knots, shifting southwesterly at 20 to 30 knots overnight and moderating to 15 to 20 knots tomorrow. Seas will be mainly rough. A strong wind warning is current. Tuesday will be fine with a top of about 20 degrees. Wednesday will also be fine with a top in the mid-20s, and Thursday will as well be very fine and warming to about 30 degrees. The temperature in Melbourne currently is 17 degrees. I'm Charles Collins.
This has been 3DB Newsfront.
Three.
memory and your host, Bob Machliss.
Thanks very much, Frank, and welcome back to this final hour tonight. Judy Garland, as you may have guessed by now, is one of my favourite singers, especially when Judy was young. From the late 40s onwards, you can hear the pain in her voice, and whilst this gives her performances a depth that perhaps the earlier records don't always have, her younger voice has an emotional edge that really gets to me. I don't know whether you feel the same as I do, but I could listen to the young Judy over and over again. Tonight, I've picked out some of the musical highlights from the soundtrack of a movie that Judy made with Mickey Rooney back in 1942 called Babes on Broadway. By this time, MGM had definitely realised they had a hot property on their hands in Judy, so they began allocating her the top studio talent and production budgets to match. And Babes on Broadway is one film in which you can see where the money has gone. Strangely enough, it was still the same old plot of, hey, if we close off the street, we could have a theatre and put in our own show, which featured in so many of Mickey and Judy's earlier movies. But the show in the grand finale was really a show, as spectacular as they came. We'll start off, though, with a great Rodgers and Hart song that was introduced in this film, and it's called How About You? And here it is, as first presented by Judy and Mickey.
When a girl meets boy, life can be a joy. But the note they end on will depend on little pleasures they will share. So let us compare. I like New York in June. How about you? I like a Gershwin tune. How about you? I love a fireside when a storm is due. I like potato chips, moonlight, motor trips. How about you? I'm mad about good books, can't get my fill. And Franklin Roosevelt's looks give me a thrill. Holding hands in the movie show when all the lights are low may not be new, but I like it. How about you? I like Jack Benny's jokes to a degree. I love the common folks, that includes me. I like to window shop on Fifth Avenue. I like banana splits, late supper at the Ritz. How about you? I love to dream of fame. Maybe I'll shine. I'd love to see your name right beside mine. I can see we're in harmony. Looks like we both agree on what to do. And I like it. How about you? I'm so delighted I've ignited the spark within you. Let me continue to make it burn. With you I will be like a trilby, so let's not dally. Come on, Svengali, I've lots to learn. When you're a rising start, exercising daily. For example, just a sample. Bend and touch the floor 50 times or more. A fine start to be a Bernhard. A dictionary's necessary, but not for talking. It's used for walking the zig-filled way. It's okay. That's the trick. You're catching on quickly. Should I take a bow? Oh, let me show you how. Just like partners on the stage. If you can use a partner, I'm the right age.
Larry Hart had a wonderful way with words. You know, he's one of my favourite lyricists. And How About You by Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland is a fine example of his art. And the time on Thanks for the Memory is just coming up to 13 minutes past 8 o'clock. Now, our next extract... Let me try that all over again. In this next extract from the soundtrack of Babes on Broadway, Mickey and Judy are dreaming about their own show. And in doing so, they managed to impersonate some of the great stars of the past, including Harry Lauder, Blanche Ring, George M. Cohan, and Sarah Bernhardt.
For it is Mary, Mary, plain as any name can be, but with propriety, society will say Marie, but it was Mary, Mary, long before the fashions came, and there is something there that sounds so square, it's a grand old name. And there is something there that sounds so square, it's a grand For she's my daisy, my bonny daisy. She's as sweet as sugar candy, and she's very fond of Sandy and a weary, for my dearie. I would rather lose my kilt than lose my daisy. For I'd rather lose my kilt than lose my daisy. Sure, I've got rings on my fingers and bells on my toes, elephants to ride upon my little Irish rose. So come to your neighbor for next Patrick's Day. Leave Mrs. Mumble Jumble Jitterboo Jay. Oh, say sure, I've got rings on my fingers and bells on my toes, elephants to ride upon my little Irish rose. So come to your neighbor for next Patrick's Day. Leave Mrs. Mumble Jumble Jitterboo Jay. Oh, Vienne, Austerlitz et sauce pour les complices. Tous ces noms glorieux fusent au firmament. Ils déchirent les ciels et dans mon cœur démon, assoiffé de victoire, ivre de clamement. À l'avène l'ouragan, on va le Yankee Doodle dandy, Yankee Doodle do or die. A real live nephew of my Uncle Sam. I was born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart. She's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle came to London just to ride the pony. Say, I am a Yankee Doodle boy. Yankee Doodle came to London just to ride a pony.
How about that then? Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney back in 1942, impersonating some of the great artists of the past, including Sarah Bernhardt. I can't vouch for how accurate that impersonation is. I have heard a recording that Bernhardt made. She sounded a bit like an angry chicken, but that was because of the crude recording apparatus that was used at the time. You're listening to Thanks for the Memory on Melbourne's own 3DB, presented by yours truly, Bob Machliss. And after this next break, we'll be back with the grand finale of Babes on Broadway.
At Melbourne's own, it's 8:19. Let Santa's World put the ho-ho-ho into your Christmas with savings galore on a fantastic range of toys for the kids, like Krona Monster Machines, just $32.95, and the 1/25th scale truck kits at only $19.90. Santa's World also has gifts for the whole family. Grab the Christmas savings at Santa's World. Shop 29 in the Forest Hill Shopping Centre, just opposite the bus stop, 323 Kilo Road, Nidri, opposite Liquorland, and in the Croydon Market Shopping Centre next to New World in Kent Avenue, and 58 Wood Street, Laverton, just near the post office.
What will I get Jack for Christmas?
A guest of honour greeting card.
Yes, a greeting card, but what will I give him?
A guest of honour greeting card has a 3-course meal inside it.
A card with a meal in it for Christmas and my birthday.
The guest of honour range of greeting cards, the $5 card that solves your gift problems too. Available at selected newsagents, card and gift shops.
This is Thanks for the Memory, and back to your host, Bob Machliss.
Thanks, Frank. Our third and final highlight from Babes on Broadway tonight comes from the spectacular end of the film. This took the form of a minstrel show, still an acceptable form of entertainment in those days. Judy starts off with a sensational version of F.D.R. Jones, and the rest of the cast join in with several other old songs you'll probably remember. And these include a banjo version of Alabama Bound that sounds like it features a zillion banjos. And it very well may have, because the sequence was directed by Mr. Cast of Thousands himself, Busby Berkeley.
Cause there is something wrong. We're waiting just to hear Mr. Tambo do his song. Mr. Tambo, do you feel good and strong? Sing it right up and show the folks how you can sing and song.
I hear tell there's a stranger in the Jones household.
Yes, sirree.
That's what I'm told. I hear tell there's a new arrival 6 days old.
Yes, sirree.
Worth is waiting, go, come right in and meet the stars. Christmas stars, time to have some fun.
Yes, sirree.
Yes, sirree.
Yes, sirree. Yes, sirree.
It's a big holiday everywhere. For the Jones family has a brand new heir. He's the joy heaven sent, and we proudly present Mr. Franklin D. Roosevelt Jones. When he grows up, he never will stray, with a name like the one that he's got today. When he walks down the street, folks will say, pleased to meet Mr. Franklin D. Roosevelt Jones. What a smile, and how he shows it. He'll be happy all day long. What a name, I'll bet he knows it. With the handle, how can he go wrong? And the folks in the town all agree he'll be famous as he can be. How can he be a dud or a stick in the mud when he's Franklin D. Roosevelt Jones? Go to sleep, my baby, and maybe you'll balance the budget by and by. Oh, you're a lucky baby with Franklin D. for your name. Mrs. Jones's baby boy is a welcome resident. Give him a fish for a toy. He's the future president. When this rascal goes to school, ABCs won't matter. Teach him plain arithmetic and a course of fireside chatter. My friend, let's all shout hooray! We'll be proud to affirm when he serves his fourth term. Just you wait and see. He'll make history. Cause he's Franklin D. Roosevelt Jones. Alabama, with Daddy and Mammy, there's r.p.m and Sammy on a moonlight night. You can find them all while they are wasting the banjos. I think so play. Oh, what's that they're saying? Oh, what's that they're saying? Oh, while they keep playing and humming and swaying, it's a good ship, Robert E. Lee, that's here to carry the cotton away. Watch them shuffling along. See them shuffling along. So take your best gal, your real pal. Go down on the levee, I said to the levee, and we'll join that shuffling song. Hear that music and song. It's simply great, man. Waiting on the levee, waiting for the Robert E. Lee.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. A few of the highlights from Judy Garland's 1942 movie, Babes on Broadway. And if you've just tuned in, you're listening to Thanks for the Memory, presented by yours truly, Bob Machliss, on Melbourne's own 3DB. And the time is 29 minutes past 8 o'clock. Next, we come to this week's Craft Corner and Bing Crosby. This excerpt from a 1942 Kraft Music Hall broadcast features Crosby with a lady whom we heard from earlier this evening, Mary Martin. Here Bing and Mary reminisce about the late 1920s and a certain trio that was just gaining popularity.
Say, have you heard Paul Whiteman play Through the Black of Night, I got to go where you are, and if it's wrong or right...
Sounds wrong to me.
Well, not the way Paul Whiteman plays it. You know that trio he's got with him, those, what do you call the Rhythm Boys?
Do you like them?
Don't you?
Well, there's three too many of them.
It's a trio.
I know.
Listen, they don't do bad with Mississippi mud. Happy as a cow just a chewing on a cut, and when the dog beat the feet on the Mississippi. Oh, dear, happy as a cow when the dog beat the feet on.
Harry, two of the boys aren't bad. That little old fat one with a cymbal that annoys me. What's he keep hitting that cymbal for?
Listen, if any of his whispered warbling seeps through, the kid's through.
Well, I don't like that jazz stuff anyway. I like songs like, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm blue. My disposition depends on you. It does too, Harry.
Does what?
Oh, nothing.
I took one look at you. That's all I meant to do. And then my heart stood still.
Honestly, Harry, remember the first night you held my hand? It was in the balcony at Showboat.
Oh, yeah, and all evening on the way home you kept singing, we could make believe I love you. Only make believe that you love me. Others find peace of mind in pretending. Couldn't you, couldn't I, couldn't we
Make believe our lips are blending in a phantom kiss, or two or three. Might as well make believe I love you, for to tell the truth, I do.
Ah, good old make-believe. All Crosby collectors will know that Bing first recorded that himself back in 1928. That version, of course, comes from a 1942 broadcast. On Melbourne's own 3DB, you're listening to Thanks for the Memory. Believe it or not, an artist who gained his first success with Bing also on radio was everyone's favourite Great Dane, Victor Borge. One of his most famous pieces of business was phonetic punctuation. And you may be familiar with his later live audience recording of that song, but have you ever heard his original 78? It was cut around 1942 and sounds like this.
My name is Victor Borge, and I was born in Copenhagen, Denmark. We weren't very rich, so I was born at home. When my mother saw me, she was taken to the hospital. When I was 5 years old, my father opened the door to the living room and found me in front of a roaring fire. This made him very angry because we didn't have a fireplace. My father stood there. He said, Borge. See, my father could never remember my first name. He said, Borge, how old are you? I said, I'm 5. My father said, shame on you, Borge. When I was your age, I was 10. 4 years ago, I came to America. To be exact, in 2 months, it'll be 4 years and 2 months ago. And unfortunately, I couldn't speak a word of English, which was pretty bad because I found that most people over here do. Well, I tried to learn it, and I got along as time and a half went by, but I found that even people who speak English sometimes do not understand each other either, also. And I tried to find the reason, and here's what I found. When you write a letter, you use punctuation marks in order to make your sentences understood. For instance, you write a sentence like, was I an idiot? And you put a question mark after that sentence. That indicates that you are not quite sure. Now, if you, instead of the question mark after the same sentence, put an exclamation point, then there is no doubt. I hope you see the difference on account of these little signs, which make them very important. But we do not use them when we talk, and that might be the reason that we do not understand each other. Therefore, I have invented the phonetic punctuation, which means that while we talk, we shall use punctuation marks by giving them sounds, like a period, for instance. Every time you finish a sentence, you want a period, you just do, then we know it's all over. Here's a dash. That was period and dash. Exclamation point is a vertical dash with a period underneath. Here's a comma. Quotation are 2 commas. Or if you happen to be left-handed, question mark is rather difficult. And finally, we have the colon. You know, the 2 little dots, you put them either over or under each other, as you feel like. I think in America, you usually put them over each other. See, in Denmark, we put them under each other, but just a small country. Colon sounds like this. And that is all you have to learn. Now, if you will turn the record, I'll be glad to read a story to you so you can hear how it sounds when used. I have in my hand a pocket edition of Shakespeare, Johann Sebastian Shakespeare. I have it in my hand because it wouldn't do me any good in my pocket right now. I have prepared a story right here in the beginning, and I would like to read this to you. Right here in the beginning. Let me see. Yes, I have prepared it. It's right here on page 2642. This story takes place in London, somewhere in England. Through the open window, there suddenly came light. Beautiful Elinor sat alone, dreaming of but one thing. 2 years had passed since she met Sir Henry. She could still remember the unhappy evening when her father had thrown him out. They had been sitting in the park, and Henry had said, "Darling, is this the first time you have loved?" She had answered, "Yes, but it is so wonderful that I hope it will not be the last." Suddenly she heard a well-known sound. It was he. In 2 strides he was near her, embraced, kissed, and caressed her. "Henry, what is love?" she asked. He answered, "Well, I couldn't live without." She asked, "Oh, I'm sorry." She was left-handed. "Where have all your thoughts been this while?" He answered, "With thee, O maiden." He turned the page. Suddenly he was gone. All she heard was the well-known sound of his departing horse. The end.
Phonetic punctuation. What a clever idea that was, and still is. I saw Victor Borger on his most recent visit to Australia a couple of years back, and he was still including it as part of his act. Poor guy must be bored to distraction by doing it, but the audiences still love it. You're listening to Thanks for the Memory on Melbourne's own 3DB. After this next break, we'll be back with one of the few comedy records ever made by Abbott and Costello.
It's now 22 to 9.
Plumbers, painters, panel beaters, do you use a slow and unreliable LPG torch? Make the job easier with the Rottenberger Aeracetylene torch from CIG Gas and Gear Centre's pre-Christmas sale and save 15% while you're at it. The faster, hotter and easier way to braze, heat and solder. The torch that won't blow out on you. Save 15% off the regular retail price. Only at these CIG Gas and Gear Centres. Hurry! Offer closes December 31. Cheltenham, corner Bernard and Herald Streets. Dandenong, Frankston Road, near Saba.
Hal Todd is your best late-night friend. Every night at 11 on Melbourne's own 3DB. Toddy cares and shares. He's a friend in need, and he's also a lot of fun. Hal Todd, every night at 11 on Melbourne's own 3DB.
This is Thanks for the Memory, and your host, Bob Machliss.
And the time is 21 minutes to 9 o'clock. Next, we have a comedy record from, of all people, Abbott and Costello. And I say from of all people because they actually released very, very few comedy records in their lifetime. In fact, very few records at all. This track was cut almost exactly 45 years ago, on December 8th, 1941 to be exact, the day after Pearl Harbor, and the beginning of an era when Americans, and indeed all the world, needed to laugh, laugh, laugh.
Hey, Abbott, I just wrote a joke. I'll tell it, if I may.
Now, that's a silly thing to say. There's no new jokes today.
Whether jokes are old or new, just telling them is lots of fun. You dig up some old pun and say, have you heard this one?
Hey, Costello, no smoking.
Hey, Abbott, who's smoking?
You are.
What makes you think I'm smoking?
Hey, you've got a cigar in your mouth.
I got my shoes on, but I ain't walking.
Laugh, laugh. There's lots to be thankful for. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Things have been worse before. If you're double-crossed by the friend you pick, pushed around and above and beaten and kicked, they may have you down, but you'll never be licked if you laugh, laugh, laugh.
Hey, Abbott, how about those girls we had out last night?
Now, don't get personal, Costello.
You got no kick coming, Abbott. You had the best-looking one.
What do you mean?
Yours had teeth.
Well, yours had teeth, too.
I'll say she did. Mine had so much bridge work, every time I kissed her, I had to pay toll.
Laugh, laugh, laugh. There's lots to be thankful for. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Things have been worse before.
If your wife runs away with your pal, don't cry, or carry a torch and long to die.
You should feel sorry for the other guy.
If you laugh, laugh, laugh.
Hey, Abbott,
What, Costello?
Where do all the little bugs go in the wintertime?
Search me.
No, thanks. I just wanted to find out.
Laugh, laugh, laugh. There's lots to be thankful for. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Things have been worse before.
If your income tax statement's made out with good cheer and you pay what you owe with a conscience that's clear.
All you need is to borrow to live on next year.
If you laugh, laugh, laugh.
Hey, Costello, I'm going fishing, and I'm some fisherman.
Hey, Abbott, what makes you think you're a fisherman?
Well, if I come home with a basket of fish, don't that make me a fisherman?
Well, if I come home with a quart of milk, does that make me a cow?
Laugh, laugh. There's lots to be thankful for. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Things have been worse before. If you're double-crossed by the friends you pick, pushed around and about and beaten and kicked, they may have you down, but you'll never be licked if you laugh, laugh, laugh.
Say, Costello.
What, Abbott?
Have you any children?
Oh, I got 4 little children.
4?
Eeny, meeny, miny, and Wilbur.
Wilbur? Why Wilbur?
We didn't want any more.
Laugh, laugh, laugh. There's lots to be thankful for. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Things have been worse before.
If a blessed event is almost near, and you wait for the day with a gnawing fear.
And the priority board says wait till next year.
Just laugh, laugh, laugh.
Come on, Costello, you're terribly slow with your jokes.
Oh, what's so fast about you?
Well, I come from the fastest town in the world.
Where's that?
New York City.
What's so fast about New York City?
Would you believe it? One day, on my way to work, I saw a gang of workmen laying a foundation for a 50-story building. And that very same evening, on my way home to dinner, that building was up and completed. That's fast.
You call that fast?
Mm-hmm.
I come from the fastest town in the world.
Where's that?
Paterson, New Jersey.
Oh.
Look, Abbott. One morning, on my way to school, I saw a gang of workmen laying a foundation for a 100-story building.
100 stories?
And that same afternoon, on my way home to dinner...
Now, wait a minute. Don't tell me that building was up and completed.
Up and completed? They was putting the people out for not paying the rent. Get this kid chittering and tottering.
What happened to her?
She's getting hysterical. I gotta laugh with her.
Tell her another one, Costello.
Hey, lady, I'm gonna tell you a short one. Once upon a time, there was 2 Irishmen. Now look how many there are.
Who's this, her husband?
Where did he come from?
What started all this? What's the matter with you?
He's like a little baby. That's fine. That's fine. I'm going to tell you another one. Once upon a time... They didn't even let me finish yet.
Yes, Abbott and Costello were really at their peak when they cut that disc in 1941. Laugh, laugh, laugh is a good example of the boys at their best, even if the jokes do fall under the heading of oldies but oldies. Well, now for the final chapter of Showbiz on Thanks for the Memory. This LP was a staple of radio stations in the late 50s and early 60s, and I remember I tried for a long time without success to get hold of a copy. You see, the record was never pressed in Australia, and because of the copyright laws existing at that time, very few records were ever imported into the country. I finally picked up a copy at Allen's in the city in the early 1960s. I can still remember walking past their shop window and seeing the record in a display of new releases. And that record I bought some 25 years ago is the record you're hearing tonight. So here it is now, the final part of Showbiz, from TV to 3D.
Enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. Enjoy yourself while you're still in the pink.
1940, the bugles blew, and America shook with a frenzy that was a combination of wartime prosperity and the fear that tomorrow would never come. The people didn't say it, but they thought, enjoy yourself, it's later than you think.
Enjoy yourself, it's later than you think.
But soldiers fought, and soldiers in grease paint entertained them. Dinah Shore brought a breath of home into the front lines overseas and to hospitals where the wounded lay. Frances Langford, Bob Hope, Al Jolson, Catherine Cornell, Arlene Francis, Gracie Fields, Kay Kaiser, Joan Davis, Bing Crosby, Joey Brown, Cantor, Jessel Durante, all made tour after tour. And Jane Frone and Gypsy Markov lived to come back from a plane crash off Lisbon. Paradoxically, the Foe's favorite war song became ours as well, especially as interpreted by the incomparable Hildegard.
Would you like to hear the story of a girl that many soldiers know? It's a tale of love and all its glory. They tell when the lights are soft and low. Underneath the lamppost by the barricade, standing all alone, every night you see her wait. She waits for a boy who marched away, and though he's gone, she hears him say, oh, promise you'll be true. Fare thee well, Lily Marley, till I return to you. Fare thee well, Lily Marley. Unsere beiden Schatten sahen wie eine aus. Dass wir so lieb uns hatten, sah man gleich daraus. Und alle Leute sollen es sehen, wenn wir bei der Laterne stehen. Wie einst Lili Marleen, wie einst Lili Marleen. Fare thee well, Lili Marleen.
In New York and Hollywood, GIs danced with Betty Davis, Marlene Dietrich, Dinah Shore, and all the other glamour girls at the stage door canteens. Morse Hart produced Wing Victory for the Air Forces. And there was another show called This Is the Army. That show raised $10 million for Army emergency relief. Bastogne, Hiroshima. Finally, it was over. And as we reconverted to peace, strange gadgets began to appear on American rooftops. Milton Berle became everyone's Uncle Milty. Hopalong Cassidy rode again. Television brought everything, Dagmar, wrestling, and panel shows into the living room. But the reigning kings of showbiz, both as impresarios and creative writers, unquestionably were Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein II.
Where the wind comes sweeping down the plain, and the waving wheat can sure smell sweet when the wind comes right behind the rain.
We started with Oklahoma, wrote and produced such tidbits as Carousel, Allegro, John Loves Mary, The King and I, Me and Juliet. And then in South Pacific, a basso from the Met became a wow with the Bobby Soxers, Ezio Pinza.
Some enchanted evening, when you find your true love, when you feel her call you across a crowded room, then fly to her side and make her your own, or all through your life you may dream all alone. Once you have found her, never let her go. Once you have found her, never let her go.
Yes, that was Ezio Pinza himself. During this period, as people were flocking to Broadway to enjoy those great productions, a voice on phonograph records was commanding a greater and a greater audience. The man to whom the voice belonged had started as a recording artist in the early 40s, and he was to enter the 50s as the undisputed champion. His name, Perry Como. You know his later records. Now listen to the first record that he ever made.
Goodbye, Sue. All the best of luck to you. You've been my only gal. What's more, my best pal. Please don't cry. Smile until the clouds roll by. Don't kiss me, dear, just walk away, or I could never, ever say goodbye. Goodbye, Sue.
People stayed at home to listen to Como on an old invention called the Victrola, and to see him on a new invention called TV. But with all the staying at home, Broadway was booming. Even Two-A-Day Vaudeville revived as the Palace presented Judy Garland, whose performance touched us all. Then Betty Hutton, and then Danny Kaye.
Dinah, is there anyone finer in the state of Carolina? If there is and you know her, show her to me, oh Dinah. With her Dixie eyes blazing, how I love to sit and gaze to the ease of Dinah Lee. I know that every night. Why do I say it's right? Because my Dinah might change her mind about me. Oh boy, it's a happy showbiz album, Dinah. If she wanted to, Gina, I would hop an ocean liner. Just to be, leave it, give it, get it, get it, get it, sound, get it, get it, get it, get it, sound, get it, get it, sound, keep it going, get it, get it, hot today, sit it, get it, get it, get it, get it, give it, gab, rip it, gab, get it, hey, get it, bay, risk it, get my father, get it, band, rip it, gab, got it, get hot today, hot today, he was going, got it, there.
The cradle of showbiz, vaudeville, came back for an encore. Throughout the years, showbiz has proved one thing. There is nothing as permanent as change. We've seen the change from ragtime to jazz to swing, radio to television, silent movies to talkies to Technicolor to three-dimensional films. But the more things change, the more the pattern remains the same. Yesterday's John McCormick gives way to Johnny Ray, Lillian Russell to Rita Hayworth, Caruso to Lanza, Chaplin to Sid Caesar, Laurel and Hardy to Martin and Lewis. The stars change, the shows change, the songs change, but showbiz goes on, giving one encore after another. And when Eddie Fisher sings, as he does right now, he is an encore. An encore of great performers of the past who have moved on and who have left their place for him to fill.
They're not making the skies as blue this year. Wish you were here. As blue as they used to when you were near. Wish you were here. And the mornings don't seem as new, brand new as they did with you. Wish you were here, wish you were here, wish you were here. Someone's painting the leaves all wrong this year. you were here. Why did the birds change their song this year? Wish you were here. They're not shining the stars as bright. They've stolen the joy from the night. Wish you were here. Wish you were here. Wish you were
I hope you've enjoyed hearing show business as much as me. Let's end tonight with another Rodgers and Hart song, presented by one of the most sophisticated singers of the 1930s, Ramona, accompanying herself on the grand piano with a song called The Heart is Quicker Than the Eye.
Dear old mother was as wise as 10 folks, and she knew her way about the men folks. Once she said to me, though you're quite a pup, daughter dear, it's time to wise you up. She said love has always been my hoodoo. Though I've lived, I know much less than you do. Mother told me there's no use asking why. He loves she and she loves he. The heart is quicker than the eye. Mother warned me, fair play doesn't apply. Turn your back and love goes whack. The heart is quicker than the eye. Love can kill you off, baby, faster than flirt. It finds its mark and toots your ear. Dear sweet mother was careful and so sly. But my dear, you see I'm here. The heart is quicker than the eye. December 1905, Mother got a little snootful. In September 1906, I was born alive and beautiful. I recall a few years later, I was taken with the measles, and my darling little mater would sit up all night with a good-looking guy. Oh me, oh my. We would travel quite a lot, but we always went to Reno. She'd remarry like a shot, not for long, but how could she know? Number 4 was a musician, he could swing it sweet and hot.
And we're running just a little bit late, so I'll say good night now. Frank McKay, thank you once again for operating the turntables. And to all those artists we featured tonight, this is Bob Machliss saying thanks for the memory.
And it's 9 o'clock.
3DB Newsfront.
Good evening, I'm Charles Collins. Riot police in Paris have dispersed thousands of students who rampaged through the French capital's streets in a 3-hour orgy of violence and destruction. The police, backed by bulldozers to demolish burning barricades in the city's Latin Quarter, charged the demonstrators with batons drawn. The violence, the worst since the May 1968 student uprising, has already resulted in the death of a student of Algerian descent. At least 20 cars were incinerated, shop windows were smashed, and a building site was looted for the material to build the barricades. The police were under instructions to calm the situation, and no tear gas was used. It's the third night of rioting since the new right-of-centre government moved to reform higher education in France. There's yet another new angle on Rupert Murdoch's takeover bid for the Herald and Weekly Times today. Foreign Affairs Minister Bill Hayden has come out against allowing Mr Murdoch's proposed takeover bid to go ahead. Ross McSwain reports from Canberra.
Foreign Affairs Minister Bill Hayden today publicly split with the Prime Minister, Mr Hawke, and strongly opposed last week's $1.8 billion takeover bid by News Corporation for the Herald and Weekly Times media group. Mr Hayden accused News Corporation's chairman Rupert Murdoch of bending the news to serve a political purpose and warned that the federal government might investigate using the trade practices regulations to try and stop the bid. He said Mr Murdoch had opposed the ALP in 1975, and while all media owners showed some bias, Mr Murdoch had lifted it to a very rough art form. The issue was expected to come before Federal Cabinet when it meets tomorrow, and Mr Hayden is expected to strongly argue that the bid should be stopped. Mr Hayden's comments are the first by a federal government minister on the issue and indicate growing unease amongst government members at the proposed takeover. Mr Murdoch stunned the media world last week with a dramatic sweep on the Herald and Weekly Times company, offering more than $12 a share. But after a week of turmoil, it is expected to be at least another 3 months before the future of the company has been decided. This is Ross McSwain in Canberra for 3DB Newsfront.
Federal Cabinet is expected to discuss appointments to fill 2 High Court vacancies when it meets tomorrow. The vacancies, created by the retirement of Chief Justice Sir Harry Gibbs and the death of Justice Lionel Murphy, have created a rare opportunity for the Labor Party to influence the composition of the High Court. Front-runners for the vacancies include New South Wales Solicitor General Mary Gaudron, West Australian Federal Court Judge John Toohey, New South Wales Court of Appeal Judge Michael McHugh, and Commonwealth Solicitor General Dr Gavin Griffith. It's widely expected that Sir Anthony Mason, the High Court's most senior judge, will succeed Sir Harry Gibbs as